Hey everyone, Mr. Male Trope here with another video. As some of you may or may not know, I deleted this YouTube channel about a week ago and I just reactivated it. I'm going to cover the reasons why in this video. There's a little bit of a story behind it as to why I deleted it and then came back, so let's start from the beginning. This started right around the time Sargon of Akkad uploaded a video talking about the Skeptic Community. And I wanted to do a response to that. And I did make a video response that I never uploaded. I looked at the finished product and I was like, I don't know if I want to get involved in this. For the longest time, I've always tried to stay out of this community and just mainly focus on Anita Sarkeesian. But whenever there's drama, something going on, I've always tried to stay out of it. So I just didn't want to be part of that. Then the other thing that happened was the Milo Yiannopoulos business when there was the riots at that university, and he ended up getting his invite to Bill Maher. And I got to thinking, well, I look at the other side, and it's like these people, they can't control themselves. They can't stop shooting themselves in the foot, and they just keep helping Milo to become more famous. So what can you say to talk sense into them? And the way this whole, I guess if you want to call it a community, works is once you get sucked into it, you kind of get addicted to it. You want to see who's saying what in their YouTube videos or who's saying what on Twitter. And I have a hard time disconnecting from that sometimes. And it was at that point I decided I just wanted to just walk away from it all. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I thought the best way would just be to just quit and walk away from it. And that's what I did. I deleted my YouTube channel and I walked away from it. I'm going to come back to the Skeptic Community here in a minute, but I want to finish my story. So even though I deleted my YouTube channel, guess who appears on the national news? Milo Yiannopoulos. And it's just sort of ironic how you used to have to, like a couple of years ago, you had to be involved in Gamergate or know about Gamergate to know about some of these people. Now you see them on the national news. It's almost like you can't get away from it. And then you load up something on the internet, and guess who's trending? Milo Yiannopoulos. Well, about a week ago, I saw Milo's name trending, and I'm like, oh great, what did the social justice warriors do this time? And somebody dug up some old clips of stuff that he had said. He ended up losing his book deal, and his speaking engagement at CPAC, and then eventually he resigned from Breitbart. And that's the kind of stuff where I sometimes feel like I want to comment on it, but I can't because at that point I didn't have a YouTube channel. And my Twitter account, I also had deactivated it too, because I was just going to walk away from it. But then you start seeing other things and other things happening, and it starts getting the juices flowing, and you want to start making videos again or commenting on stuff. The other thing I want to add to that is sometimes when you have a YouTube channel, you might bring an interesting insight, or you might have some knowledge on there that it gets lost when you delete your YouTube channel. What I'm about to say, it's going to sound like something I've heard Jonathan McIntosh say before, so please forgive me for sounding like him. But it sort of leaves holes in the internet. If somebody links to a video on your YouTube channel or puts a video on a playlist and then you delete your channel, then there's holes there now. So I decided I would go ahead and reactivate the YouTube channel, and if I don't want it or anything to do with it, it'd be better for me to just walk away from it, but leave it up. So I'm going to try to leave this one up and not delete it again. And thankfully, I was able to just reactivate it and get back into the groove of things. Now, another thing that's happened in this time frame is what's going on with PewDiePie. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit. But let's start over from the beginning now and get right back to the Skeptic Community. And explain the problems I have with it. I'm going to try to condense the problems because I don't need to go over a huge checklist to explain why I have a problem with calling it a Skeptic Community. When I first learned about this community, it was in the later part of 2014 when I started doing response videos to Anita Sarkeesian. And one of these projects I happened upon was the Sarkeesian effect. And I'm sure some of you will remember that. I had just looked around into that, and I was skeptical of it. I had problems with some of the people involved and with the project itself. But the thing that really confused me was how many people from this community got involved with that project. Whether they were interviewing these guys, promoting the project on their YouTube channels, doing live streams, encouraging other people to get involved with it. While that was all going on, I'm sitting here thinking, why the hell are so many people getting involved with this? Can't they see the problems with this? And that ended up just train wrecking back in, it was July of 2015. Now I know some people might say that's ancient history and we learned our lesson, and that's true. That's way in the past. But out of the various other things that have happened along the way, I want to talk about a more recent one, which is this Candid controversy. Now I remember when Harmful Opinions first started making videos about this toward the end of last year. I watched all his videos, and I watched some of the response videos, and I watched how this thing played out. But he was bringing up some interesting points about the problems with Candid. Now, I'm not going to go on a whole long rant about that, because that's not what this is about. The point I'm trying to make is, it just seemed like a lot of people in this community weren't very skeptical of Candid, and they all got involved in it. I think one of the best people I can quote on this is I watched a live stream with TLDR and Harmful Opinions, and I guess TLDR was approached by Candid, and he read the contract, and he had an issue with the line in it. With something in there, he didn't want to sign it. It's like, how come he had a problem with it but no one else did? It's almost like people saw the money, or they just said, well, hey, this other person's going along with it, so maybe I should go along with it too. I don't see what's wrong with this. So here's the main problem I have with calling it a skeptic community, is you have entire groups of people in this community who get involved in this dumb shit that they shouldn't get involved with. Whether it was the Sarkeesian effect, or Candid, or any of this other stuff. It's like calling yourselves an anti-feminist community would work, or the anti-social justice community would work. But you say, we're a community of skeptics. I mean, what's the criteria for getting involved in this community? If you have the cookie-cutter anti-feminist arguments, a YouTube channel, and a Patreon account, you're a skeptic. A complete idiot can fall in that criteria, and not everyone in this community is dumb. There's some really smart people in this community. Some that are much smarter than me. I don't consider myself a particularly intelligent person, but to say we're a community of skeptics, when you have people that just get involved in this dumb shit, we're skeptics. Now I want to talk a little bit about Milo Yiannopoulos and what happened to him. Milo Yiannopoulos built his brand mainly off of outrage, okay? When he gets interviewed, what does he go to talk about? He when he gets a lot of press, he talks about how he was suspended from Twitter. When he gets a lot of press, he talks about how there were riots at a speech he was going to give at a university. He's not going to talk about a book that he wrote or an important speech he gave. Like this CPAC thing, that's a high level speaking event, much more high level than just speaking at college universities. I mean, you could say they're both important, but one's definitely a higher profile. Milo's main thing is he built his brand off of being controversial. Along the way, he said a lot of controversial things, and in this particular case, he said some things he shouldn't have. Now, some people say he shouldn't have even said this. Milo says maybe I should have worded it differently. But whatever the case, Milo does have a little bit of regret with what he said, even if it's just how he worded it. Now, this is the main point I want to make, okay? You look at the foundation for Milo, it's being controversial. It's saying controversial stuff. And he built a platform, a big platform, off of being controversial. He doesn't really have a lot of books that he's written. He doesn't really have, he started a podcast last year. He doesn't have a really strong foundation. His big thing is just his platform of outrage, of just making people mad. Now, what happens when you have a weak foundation is if you hit that foundation hard enough and you knock it out from under someone, everything he built, it just kind of came crumbling down. And I'm not saying that wouldn't have happened to someone else if they had said the same thing, but there really wasn't much there other than the outrage and the controversy. And people are inclined to disagree with me on that if they want, and that's fine. But here's the other point I want to make. Milo's also what I would consider a high-risk investment. If you gamble on Milo, you either win big or you lose big. Okay? And he rode this being outrageous and making people mad and getting under people's skin, and he rode that pretty good for a long time. And he had a bright future, but he said a bunch of regrettable stuff at some point. And that came back to bite him. And that's what I mean by you're taking a risk on someone like Milo. He's irresponsible. He said stuff that he probably shouldn't have said. I mean, it's kind of like there's become this mentality on people on the free speech side of the discussion that you can be completely irresponsible and you should still win and you should still succeed. But there used to be a time and place where you needed to be a responsible person. It's just like with the whole sponsors. If you have someone that sponsors you, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing them. So you have to be careful sometimes about what you say and do, which is leading into my next point about PewDiePie. Now, on the one side, you have people saying that PewDiePie shouldn't be saying stuff like that. It's too controversial. On the other side, you have people saying, they're just jokes. You have to understand the context. When you represent a sponsor, if they have a problem with some of the stuff you're saying, they do have a right to take away your sponsorship. And PewDiePie did kind of admit maybe, he did go a little too far with some of this stuff. But here's the problem I have with the people that have a problem with PewDiePie. It's not just that they try to take his sponsors away, it's they try to destroy him. They try to take his career and take it away from him. And this is going to play into part of the problem I have with this culture war. This is why I'm bringing up PewDiePie. In this culture war, you have extremists on both sides, okay? Extremists. Then you have the people that lean in one direction or the other, and then you have the middle. What happens is if you have somebody who's on one side, but maybe they're not to the extreme. If you have the extremists on this side that try to destroy this person, they're knocking them further in that direction. And you kind of force them to be on that end because you're trying to destroy them. You're not trying to educate them. You're not trying to police their behavior. You're trying to destroy their career. And I've seen this happen where these progressives and social justice warriors, they set out to destroy the career of someone because of something they said or did. And that's where I have a serious disagreement with what's happening. If people choose to not sponsor PewDiePie, that's one thing. But to try and destroy the man over some of the stuff he said, that's ridiculous. I could understand if PewDiePie did something truly revolting. Like if he did stuff that I don't want to even talk about. I could understand that. But all he was doing was making jokes on a YouTube channel. People want to destroy him over that. That's just ridiculous. And if you try to take a neutral stance, if you try to be critical of both sides, or try to understand where both sides are coming from, you get attacked from both sides. I have a saying that when you're a middle-of-the-road kind of person, you risk getting hit by cars on both sides of the road. It's almost easier just to pick an extreme and go with it. And I've seen people who I thought started out reasonable, and then they just end up picking an extreme because that's easier to do. It's also easier to become popular. But then when you try to be reasonable, people who are on your side, normally, they start attacking you. But going back to what I said earlier, when you have extremists on one side that are trying to destroy someone, how do you reason with that? You can't. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. I could ramble on for like a half an hour or longer about this. And that's not what this video is about. It's just to say that hopefully people understand why I wanted to walk away from it and why I was hesitant to upload a video like this. But I'm going to go ahead and upload this video and see where it goes. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So that's pretty much it for this video.